House Republicans managed to pass their budget framework on a final Hail Mary play at the last minute last night. Throughout the day, House Speaker Mike Johnson held multiple meetings with various GOP holdouts, deficit hawks who had concerns about spending, and moderates concerned about Medicaid cuts. It seems the Speaker received an 11th hour assist from President Trump, who contacted the holdouts. The final vote came down to 217 to 215, with Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky being the sole Republican to vote down the bill. Speaking to reporters after Johnson had this to say about President Trump's involvement.
What changed in those 10 minutes?
We got everybody to yes. That's what changed.
And did Trump? How instrumental was Trump's involvement here?
He was big help, as always.
Did you make any commitments to the holdouts to get them to switch?
No, we just got everybody to yes.
Claire McCaskill, this is, again, I mean, this is all showbiz. This is all distractions. They're passing these resolutions. We've got a $36 trillion debt. CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, says that they're going to add another $23 trillion over the next decade. It took us 220 years to even add $5 trillion total to the debt. And there's a great Wall Street Journal piece by Neil Ferguson that talks about Ferguson's law, not Neil Ferguson's law, but the law of an essayist from the 1700s. And he says this: what I call Ferguson's law states that any great power that spends more on debt service than on defense risks ceasing to be a great power. And then Neil goes through centuries of examples of that happening. We are there now, and it's about to get exponentially worse. And you have the White House saying they're going to balance the budget. They're not. You had Donald Trump promise in 2016 he's going to balance the budget and pay off the debt. It exploded at record rates. It's been exploding at record rates for 20 years now. And they're sitting around here pretending that a couple of cuts by DOJ is going to take care of the problem. It's as Mike Allen reported, they're not even saving the amount of money that the United States is paying on interest on the debt every single day.
Yeah, and listen, DOJ is basically taking a claw hammer to find change in the couch. And that's all it is change in the couch. And they're not even accurate or competent in the way they're doing it. They're not doing it by grade. They're not doing it by job classification. They're not doing it by impact on human life and danger to the American people. It's just silly performative crap. And here's the thing, Joe, the math here is so cruel. It is so cruel. And I want to look at this just for a second. Give me a second to look at this through a political lens. Donald Trump is the first Republican candidate for president to win the lowest third of Americans in terms of how poor they are. In 60 years, not since 1960 did a Republican win the poorest one-third of America. So are they going to prioritize Donald Trump's promise to no tax on tips? Are they going to prioritize no tax on Social Security? How about no tax on overtime? No way. They're not even getting to that. Yeah. They instead are focusing on the very, very wealthy and to put the whipped cream and cherry on top. Yesterday, he announces that anybody who's rich anywhere in the world can come to America and not have to worry about a visa or residency, because if you're rich, you can come here. But if you're poor and you're struggling and your family is at risk, then we're going to put you in Guantanamo Bay. Yeah, it's unbelievable how he's mistreating the poor. Unbelievable.
A $5 million gold card. Let's for 1 minute, just for purposes of people that are watching this show and may not be moved by moral arguments, let's just talk about raw politics. And I'm so glad you're here because you represented Missouri, a state that had a couple big cities, but was rural. These Republicans that think things are bad right now, and I know, because I did, like Mika said, I hold town hall meetings. I'd hold about 100 a year. And when we were making cuts to the budget through the normal, regular order, had to go back and answer why, had to explain why we were slowing down the rate of growth for Medicare to save Medicare, to extend its life. Not easy to do, but we did it. But if they think that this is tough, you talk about that lower third income earners voting for a Republican president. These Republicans are talking about slashing Medicaid behind closed doors. When they slash Medicaid, I want you to explain. I can't explain how important this is politically for people whose eyes may glaze over. Don't focus, because I can tell you, Claire will tell you actually, rural hospitals are already in a state of crisis. There have been hundreds of closures of rural hospitals over the past 10, 15 years. When people put their parents in nursing homes, they are Medicaid-funded nursing homes. When they go to hospitals in red state America, they are hospitals kept open by Medicaid funding. When they see doctors and nurses, those doctors and nurses are there because of Medicaid funding and Medicare funding, but Medicaid funding plays such a huge role. These cuts are going to disproportionately impact the most disadvantaged Americans in rural America, and they're going to do it and going to shut down more hospitals, shut down more nursing homes in red state America for tax cuts for billionaires in Silicon Valley. This is not a good political move for anybody in any party at any time.
Yeah, the Wall Street did not put Donald Trump in office. The billionaire class did not put him in office. Who put him in office were poor people and, frankly, rural America. And you're exactly right, Joe. Listen, I did a lot of town halls. I know something about angry. I did town halls. I went out of my way to go where people didn't like me. And I know about angry town halls, and they haven't seen even the beginning of it yet. They're all going to hide and quit doing them, I predict, like what happened during Obamacare when a lot of my colleagues hid. But here we have 31 million children on Medicaid. More people per capita on Medicaid in rural America than urban America. And here's the other kicker on this. Not only is this going to impact the base of Donald Trump's support, when Medicaid goes away, people still show up at the emergency room. And what happens when they show up at the emergency room, they can't pay for it. And then the hospital has to absorb that debt. And guess where they get that debt from? They charge insurance companies more for people who are insured. So what Donald Trump is really doing, he's taking from the poorest people in America, primarily in rural America, and he's making the middle class pay more for health insurance. That's what he is doing with this plan, all to please the folks that never really gave him much respect when he was a real estate developer going bankrupt in New York.
The tax cuts they're talking about in the outlines of this deal that was adopted yesterday by Republicans, $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, mostly to the wealthy and to corporations over the next 10 years. And we haven't even talked about food assistance alongside Medicaid as well.